Tonight, 3 to 4 days to agree to a peace deal or face a sad end. Donald Trump's ultimatum to Hamas as many Middle East leaders back his plan for Gaza. Those who live there can only dare to hope.
We don't know what to do anymore. At any price, whatever it takes. We just want it to stop.
But Israel is clear it will never back Palestinian statehood, one of the militant group's key aims. Tonight we hear from the family of a hostage still being held and a Palestinian activist. Plus, a lecture, a woke crackdown and new guidelines for women in combat. What happened when America's most senior military leaders were summoned by the White House? Plus, how a Chinese spy infiltrated the heart of European politics. We hear from an intelligence chief in Germany about the threat posed by Beijing. That's all coming up in the world with me, Anna Botting. Hello there, good evening. Well, Donald Trump likes to stand at a podium and make an announcement. Last night, flanked by the Israeli Prime Minister, he heralded a new peace plan for Gaza. It would see the return of all Israeli hostages, the release of 950 Palestinians, and the flow of aid into Gaza. But that is all dependent on agreement from Hamas. Today, the US president gave the group 3 to 4 days to respond. Well, we have had a response from the Palestinian Authority and Arab nations, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They all welcome it, including the directive for Gaza to be run temporarily by what's described as an apolitical Palestinian committee. This would be overseen by a so-called Board of Peace chaired by President Trump. And the first named member of that board, Sir Tony Blair, former Prime Minister, former Middle East envoy. He spoke to Sky News a year ago about his hopes for the territory. Have a listen.
The most important thing is that we get a ceasefire that's sustainable and that we find a path back to some concept of security for the Israelis and self-determination for the Palestinians. And that's as much as you're going to get on that one.
But there is no explicit commitment to Palestinian statehood, and that is something that Benjamin Netanyahu was keen to emphasise after his White House meeting.
We will strongly oppose a Palestinian state, and President Trump also said this. He said that he understands this.
Well, tonight we hear from ordinary Palestinians and from the family of a hostage still being held as the region waits to hear whether they dare to hope for peace. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons has tonight's first report.
No peace plan agreed and no peace on the ground. Gaza is still shuddering, attacked again and again. Its people surrounded by rubble, aware that their future is being discussed. But they are powerless on the rolling tides of international politics and negotiation.
Its fate is failure. Failure just like the ones before it. I'm not optimistic at all. We're finished. To put it plainly, we're finished. It was all for nothing.
Enough. We're exhausted, displaced countless times, our children left behind as martyrs. We don't know what to do anymore. At any price, whatever it takes. We just want it to stop.
So much depends now on Hamas, on whether it will agree to give up the 48 hostages it still holds, 20 of them believed to be alive, in return for a ceasefire. The American president, optimistic, buoyed by the support of other nations.
We're going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas. And Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
There is widespread support for the deal among many Middle East countries.
Our commitment is steadfast when it comes to offering any support in ending this war, rebuilding, and providing any assistance of any kind for the people of Gaza.
But in Gaza and beyond, many Palestinians who feel this deal is a trap that will deny them a role in shaping their own future. And Israel's Prime Minister has done little to dispel those fears. So would he now accept a Palestinian state?
Absolutely not. And it's not written in the agreement either. But one thing we did say, we will strongly oppose a Palestinian state. And President Trump also said this. He said that he understands this. And he said it is obvious that this would be a huge reward for terrorism and a danger to the state of Israel. And of course, we won't agree to that.
Hamas says it will consider this deal in good faith. Donald Trump says he's expecting an answer in the coming days. And whether Hamas accepts, delays or refuses, the ramifications could be enormous. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Well, joining me now is Palestinian political analyst and women's rights expert Raham Auda. Good to see you. So a deadline now by Donald Trump of 3 or 4 days, giving Hamas only that time to respond. So how optimistic are you feeling right now that this 20-point plan can bring this war to an end?
Actually, the implementation of this plan depends on the agreement or the rejection of Hamas for this plan. According to our experience in Hamas politics, I think Hamas will say yes and however. So we don't expect that Hamas say yes 100%. Unless there is a big pressure from Arab states like Egypt and Qatar to push Hamas to agree on this plan and say yes 100%. If Hamas say no or say yes, however, this means that this plan will not be implemented fully and will not be implemented soon in the Gaza Strip. And this means that Netanyahu, as a prime minister, Israeli prime minister, will continue his military plan for full occupation of Gaza City and he may continue the operation in the middle of the Gaza Strip, which means more blood, more destruction. So we hope as Palestinian people, particularly people who are living in the Gaza Strip under this brutal war, under this full destruction, that Hamas accept this plan as it is, and then later we can negotiate about more details of this plan.
Yes, because even today, reports of artillery fire and aerial bombardment around Gaza City. The people of Gaza clearly are desperate, aren't they? Do Hamas care about them? Have they ever cared? And do Hamas need to acknowledge that they have lost?
For Hamas, it has a basic ideology which focus more on fighting and she tries to defeat the Israeli army as soon as possible. She has a military plan that she wants to implement in the Gaza Strip, regardless of the destruction and the blood of Palestinian people, because it has an ideology which is dependent on the defeating of Israeli army. So this is the issue between the Palestinian people and Hamas, that we want to convince Hamas that the time is a blood. If we don't agree now on any peace plan or ceasefire plan, the blood will continue. So this is the issue, and we hope that Hamas understand this issue, because no one support Gaza people. We are now alone in front of Israeli tanks, Israeli fire, and no one save us. So this is really a humanitarian crisis and also political crisis that need urgent action from Hamas to approve this plan as soon as possible, and then she can negotiate for more details. But she has to say yes to withdraw any war justification from Israeli side. And she has also to release the hostages, because there is no meaning for keeping these hostages until this time. We pay a high price in Gaza Strip from our blood, from our homes, from everything due to these hostages. So we don't need these hostages. Hamas has to release them as soon as possible and to end this war. And we have to reach an agreement according to Trump plan, because there is no other solution. We have no option. We have just to accept this.
Well, that's interesting. And whether there is enough to tempt Hamas, you know, the message has gone to them. If you lay down your arms, you will be given amnesty. So they'll be weighing that up. For the Palestinian people more broadly, is there a concern about the future of Palestinian statehood? Namely, because Benjamin Netanyahu has come out and said that is still a flat no from him, despite the fact that it is hinted at this 20-point plan.
Yes, from Palestinian side, particularly from the side of Palestinian Authority, there is a big concern about the issue of Palestinian statehood because there is no clear rule for Palestinian Authority in this Trump plan, and there is no any mention about the possibility of creation of Palestinian state. But I would like to say, if we consider this Trump plan as international mandate of the Gaza Strip, we have to remember that before the British mandate in Palestine led to the creation of Israeli state. And we have to be smart and to convince Trump that this international mandate should lead to the creation of Palestinian state, particularly UK and France and the major Arab states and the Western states recognize the Palestinian state. So we have to seize this opportunity, and we have to be more smart to convince Trump administration to push Israel to recognize the Palestinian state based on the two-state solution. So we have to make a lot of efforts to prove before the world that we deserve this state. We have to do some reforms. We have to build our state to convince people and the American administration and everyone that we deserve this state.
Reham Auda, good to have your thoughts there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Okay. Well, we mentioned him earlier. The former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, has been confirmed as a member of Donald Trump's Board of Peace. Today, the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said she welcomed his role as a would-be power broker. Here's what she told our lead politics presenter, Sophie Ridge.
So I think a lot of different people have been involved in this. So what started actually
he was named by Donald Trump.
Yes,
you know, I'm not just kind of plucking this out of random.
Yes,
he's central to it.
So what started in the summer with the process around recognition, including the UK, France, Australia, Canada, and so on, has been really important. Recognising a Palestinian state for the first time. That's been alongside the agreement by the Arab League and Arab states to agree that there can be no role for Hamas in the future governance of Gaza or the future governance of Palestine. So you have those things happening together. And that work has then also led to a series of proposals for this framework for peace, contributing towards the 20 points. And Tony Blair's been one of the people who's been putting forward proposals. The UK government, the French government, Arab governments,
how's
and so
his record in the Middle East
forward to it? Well, I think he'll be one of the people putting it forward. Remember, of course, he was the Middle East peace envoy for some years as well, and of course has a record on a lot of international things.
How did that go in that role?
That was an important role as part of working for different countries and working internationally as well.
I know the role, but how do you think he performed in it? What's his record like? I mean, people remember him from the Iraq War as well.
Yeah, and also from the work he did as Middle East peace envoy for a period of time. That was working with international governments for the US, the EU, the UN at that time, and also...
Not much peace in the Middle East now, though, is there?
Well, no, we've got an awful lot to do. I mean, I think this initiative is really important.
The Foreign Secretary there. Well, Donald Trump's peace plan has raised new hope for the families of the Israeli hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. The Israeli military believes 20 of those taken on October the 7th are still alive. Well, among those captured very nearly 2 years ago is the father of two, Omri Miran, whose loved ones say they will never stop fighting for his release. Well, I'm joined now by Omri's brother-in-law, Moshe Lavi, and it has been such a long, hard road, hasn't it, for the families? Daily pain. Are you allowing yourself a little bit of hope now?
Thank you for having me, and good evening to all the viewers. We always have hope, irrespective of the developments, the geopolitical developments. We have to hold on to hope. But I'm also realistic. So with the hope, I'm realistic to the fact that we've been on the verge of a breakthrough for so many times. We've heard discussions on different versions of a deal. And this very deal was on the table in different variations in the past, including during the Biden administration, and of course, since President Trump took office. I do hope that this time we'll see the real breakthrough, that one that will bring home all 48 remaining hostages, including Omri. But until we see them released, until we see the end of the war, we can't stop advocating, we can't stop demanding policymakers to find a solution to this ongoing crisis.
What is your message then to Hamas?
Look, I, as an Israeli citizen, I hold my prime minister accountable. I hold my government accountable. Many families of hostages have been rallying, going to parliament, meeting elected officials, pressuring our government constantly for the past 2 years. At the same time, we try and do that in the international community. And what I want to hear from world leaders today is that they're doing everything they can, using every lever they have to pressure Hamas to agree to a deal. We can't allow any more delays. We can't allow more buts. This is a painful deal for Israel, and I'm sure it's going to be difficult for the Palestinians to digest as well. But at the same time, it's a deal that can guarantee future for Gaza, future for Gazans, and most importantly to me, a future for my family, for Omri, with him reunited with Lishai, my sister, and my 2 nieces, Ronnie and Alma. I demand Hamas to release the hostages, to agree to the deal, disarm, and bring and create a path for a future, better future for both Palestinians and Israelis in the region.
Do you think Omri is still alive?
Omri is still alive. We know he's alive. Only recently, in the past few months, we received a psychological warfare video featuring him. We have no reason to believe he's not alive. There are still 20 living hostages, 2 whose conditions is unknown, while the rest remaining were pronounced deceased, murdered in captivity, or killed on October the 7th. We are fighting for all of them. We're fighting for all of them equally because it's part of our ethos, our social contract in Israel. When we serve in the military, as I did for 6 years, we always mentioned the fact that we're going to keep on fighting for bringing home all our captives, and we do it as part of our social ethos as well. I can't wait to see Omri holding Alma and Ronnie again, and I will keep fighting for that dream to be realized. And that's why I keep pushing everyone, making the calls, doing the meetings, including this week, to ensure policymakers understand time is of the essence and that they have to compel all parties. And right now they have to compel Hamas to stop the delay. We don't want to, I don't know if you know the book, All Quiet on the Western Front. The banality of death is a primary theme in that book. And every minute that we are not signing a deal is a minute where lives can be disappeared, both for Palestinians in Gaza and, of course, of our hostages.
Well, we know the push is on now for Gaza City, artillery fire today. Has the Israeli Prime Minister, do you think, at any point prioritised the fate of the hostages?
I have no doubt that the fate of the hostages is part of the calculations of the Israeli government. But I also know that parts of the government, but some members of the governments are from the radical right in Israel. And those members have not shown any empathy or any belief that the hostages is the primary objective of our mission in Gaza. I do think the Prime Minister sees that as a priority, but time and time again, he has lost the trust of families of hostages and of many members of the wider public. Over 70% of the public wants a deal. And this is the time that for him to show that he's committed to Trump's peace plan. He said it yesterday, but we don't want any delays from his part. And hopefully Hamas will do its duty as well and agree to the deal. We can't, as I said, we can't wait any longer, both for Gazans and Israelis. This war needs to end with the release of the hostages and with Gaza being rehabilitated and reconstituted.
Well, just one very quick final thought. We are just over a week until the second anniversary of that awful day on October the 7th. Donald Trump has given 3 or 4 days to Hamas to respond to this. You know, do you think you might be looking at 1 week and there can be a beginning of a resolution to this?
I think it is possible. And if there is a world leader who can make it possible, it's President Trump. He has engaged so many world leaders over the past few weeks to find an agreement that can be agreed both by Israel, Hamas, and of course the Arab countries, Muslim countries, and the wider international community. It is possible, but as I said, time is of the essence, and I hope that on October the 7th, next week, essentially, we will be able to both mourn what has happened then, but also think about the future, including the future of my family, with Omri and Lisha reunited.
We wish you the very best in getting Omri home. Moshe Lavi, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, you're watching The World. Still to come, Donald Trump warns of what he called an invasion from within and compares US domestic threats to foreign enemies.
We're rolling. I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes. I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
I want to start the programme today with a name, a story that I can't get out of my head. The campaign has now started.
This is your chance. Tell people.
This is the Politics Hub. It's not correct. The tax burden is projected to go up.
No, I am talking about
No, but I'm not. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous.
No one does care about us.
I'm really interested in that. On in politics, how he likes to push the boundaries. He's got the majority. The question is, what is he going to do with it?
Welcome back. Well, imagine all America's most senior generals and admirals, more than 800 of them, all in one room at the same time. Many travelled hundreds of miles from their foreign postings after being summoned by the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. His message, the need for a warrior ethos, an end to what he called woke garbage, and a requirement for those in combat to meet the highest male standard. Have a listen.
Would you want him serving with fat or unfit or undertrained troops? Or alongside people who can't meet basic standards? Or in a unit where standards were lowered so certain types of troops could make it in? In a unit where leaders were promoted for reasons other than merit, performance, and warfighting? The answer is not just no, it's hell no. It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look.
So no fat generals. There was a big change too for women serving in combat roles.
This, and I want to be very clear about this, this is not about preventing women from serving. We very much value the impact of female troops. Our female officers and NCOs are the absolute best in the world. But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it.
Well, Donald Trump made a last-minute decision to attend. He warned of what he called an invasion from within, comparing US domestic threats to foreign enemies.
We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. Our history is filled with military heroes who took on all enemies, foreign and domestic. You know that phrase very well. That's what the oath says, foreign and domestic. Well, we also have domestic. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Grover Cleveland, George Bush, and others all used the armed forces to keep domestic order and peace.
Well, our US correspondent James Matthews is in Washington. So we finally found out, James, why more than 800 senior military commanders were called together. No more dudes in dresses, no more fat generals, no more beardos, fit to male benchmarks only, warrior class and ready for peace through strength. It was a lot.
It was, yeah. I think the immaculately groomed Pete Hegseth wants America's military to look more like him. And, you know, there was great mystery before this meeting, and it turned into quite the spectacle, didn't it? More than 800 top brass summoned before the bosses. Never before have so many short haircuts and bulging veins gathered under the one roof in Quantico, Virginia. From Pete Hegseth, it was, I think, a reorientation of the military and its tasks. You know, this former TV presenter, he looked every inch of his past. He laid out his military vision for putting woke, as he would have it, behind his department into the past. He spoke about too many people having been promoted for reasons of race, gender quotas, and historic firsts, he said. He spoke about facial hair, the look of the American GI. No more beardos, no more dudes in dresses, as you say. Fat troops, he laid into them and laid out a prototype for the future, which, you know, isn't necessarily female. Combat troops will have to meet what he said was the highest male standard only of physical fitness. And he said if that means no women qualify for combat roles, then so be it. That is an issue, Anna, clearly, not least for the 17% of active duty personnel that is female, that qualified through their brains, through their brawn, and by passing the fitness standard test, which they took in common with their male comrades.
And then, James, the message delivered by the president: we want you on the streets of American cities to counter the invasion from within.
Yeah, a dark chapter, I think, for many in that speech by the Commander-in-Chief. In terms of the news content, that line from Trump stood out. Talk of using American cities as a training ground for the military. Talk of a war within, an invasion within. And, you know, on a day when the career path was being laid out for his audience, he was telling them that some of them would be involved in that action. I think that will be viewed, Anna, as very dark and threatening in a number of places. He cited Chicago today, but those cities with National Guard deployed or due to be deployed, I think will feel very uneasy from what they heard. You know, Portland, Los Angeles, Memphis, places like that. They are cities that accuse this president of molding the military into his own private army, deploying troops for political reasons. They will have heard that speech and have heard it, I think, as further evidence of that.
James, thank you very much indeed. Well, the US president did try to break the ice by cracking a few jokes. He was greeted with silence and some nervous laughter. Have a listen.
I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Oh, don't laugh, don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future. But you just feel nice and loose, okay? Because we're all on the same team. And I was told that, sir, you won't hear a murmur in the room. I said, we got to loosen these guys up a little bit. So you just have a good time.
Well, I'm joined now by retired US Army General Mark Kimmett. An unusually silent meeting then as those generals and flag officers watched on. What did we just see?
Well, first of all, I want to go on the record by saying I disagree with most of the previous comments. But what you saw was what we call a typical commander's conference, whether that's done at the battalion level, the brigade level, the division level. We had for the first time it done at the National Command Authority level. And I think it was an opportunity for Secretary of Defense Hegseth to put out face-to-face to his leaders what his intent was and the direction he was going to take the Department of Defense, Department of War.
Do you agree with him chucking out woke garbage then? Because already we've seen a top US general who happens to be black fired, Navy's top admiral who happens to be a woman fired. Is that the way it's going?
Well, first of all, I think you're cherry-picking the number of those that were fired. But the fact remains is that there has been, by any measure, injections of what you would call woke culture into the military. There are many, if not most, senior non-commissioned officers and officers that believe that this distracts from the fundamental mission. The classes necessary to achieve a readiness level for those programs is distracting from combat training. And I think what he has ineloquently discussed is the fact that we need to switch away from social programs to combat training.
So are you effectively saying that it's okay that a woman who may not meet a male benchmark fitness test can no longer be in infantry? You can shove her on a boat perhaps, but she can't be on the front line.
I agree that there are demands of the infantry. I came out of the Airborne Rangers, out of a Ranger battalion. Any woman that could meet the standards expected of a Ranger to her left or right, gender doesn't matter. Performance matters, capabilities matter, skill matters.
So have you allowed women into the military who should not be there? Have you allowed fat generals and admirals to walk the streets of the Pentagon? Has there been a general slip? Is that what you're suggesting?
What I'm suggesting is that any general that walks around who is overweight and unfit is undeserving of being able to command troops. If he expects or she expects her soldiers or sailors or airmen or Marine to meet standards that they are unable to meet themselves, they are not befitting of that office.
Do you think those generals in that room agree with you? Because they were looking at a TV news host and a reality TV star real estate magnate tell people with hundreds, perhaps thousands of years of experience how to run their ship.
I think many of those, I was one of those, had I been sitting in that audience. I find myself apolitical, but the fact remains is I think I would take a breath of fresh air and say, there are a lot of good things that I'm hearing here. There are a lot of bad things that I don't think are wise for the military. But on balance, the Secretary of Defense is trying to make us more combat ready, combat relevant. That's the right direction that we should be focused upon.
And what about the use of US military in cities, Washington, LA, Chicago, Oregon? The quote from Donald Trump, I told Pete we should use some of those dangerous cities as training grounds for our military. Is that really what American cities should become?
Well, that's a subjective question, and it's also a legal question. And the courts have decided that if the president wants to use the military in cities, he can. Not any different from when we sent hundreds and thousands of soldiers into the cities to quell the riots in 1968. Detroit, Washington, D.C. I'm in a city that burned down in 1968 because of riots. It is certainly the case that we never want to put the military in cities of the United States if the local law enforcement and the local National Guard can handle the challenges.
So anti-woke with a warrior ethos, peace through strength, the Department of War. Who is all of that messaging for?
I think it's messaging primarily for those that we are potentially having to fight, but it's also, I think, a message to those young recruits that come in the military or won't come into the military because they don't believe it has that fighting ethic which they believe a military should be.
Only by being ready for war do you achieve peace. It sounds like a message to anyone who believes in armed struggle to achieve their goals, doesn't it?
Well, if you take a look at the crest of America, it's an eagle. In one hand, it has arrows. In the other hand, it has olive branches. And as the old saying goes, the only way to prepare for peace is to prepare for war. That's historical, and I don't think it's changed. And one other point I'd make about this notion of putting American troops into cities, I would go back to the Troubles. There was significant occupation of cities in Ireland by British troops. It was necessary. It was unfortunate. But at the end of the day, we could not have had the Good Friday Agreement unless the military had been part of that operation.
General Mark Kimmett, in support of the US President and the Secretary of State for War. Thank you very much indeed. Well, this is The World. Coming up, how a former aide to a far-right German politician spied for China undetected for 20 years.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories. This is insane. I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. Spy chiefs have long raised concerns about Chinese interference here in the UK. And now the reality of the threat posed by Beijing has been felt in Germany, where an aide to a senior far-right politician has been found guilty of spying for China for more than 20 years. The man, named only as Jianji, passed information to Chinese intelligence about the European Parliament and the right-wing Alternative for Germany party. Our Europe correspondent Siobhan Robbins reports now from Dresden.
In court in Germany, a Chinese spy arrives to hear his fate. Jianji is suspected of gathering intelligence for Beijing for around 20 years, spying on targets both in Germany and at the heart of European politics. Today, he was sentenced to almost 5 years in jail. The prosecutor said this was one of the most serious cases of Chinese espionage in Germany, and much of the evidence relates to the 5 years that Jianji worked as a political assistant in European Parliament, passing information to China. Now, Beijing categorically denies spying on Europe, but this case is a reminder of the power of the regime. While working as an aide to this man, far-right AfD politician Maximilian Krah, prosecutors say Xi used his job to gather intel on European parliamentary discussions. Krah denies any wrongdoing. Raiding their Brussels offices last year, Jianji was accused of crimes, including accessing 500 documents illegally and spying on Chinese dissidents. To Berlin-based activist Amy, the monitoring of opponents is no surprise. She says there's a cost to criticizing the regime.
If I went back to Hong Kong now, it would be a one-way ticket to prison. I quite expect to be arrested right at the airport.
Are you ever safe?
No. The length that the Chinese regime would go and how systematically they plan this whole thing is really beyond the imagination of many of us. We are simply not vigilant enough. And I hope this Jianji case would ring the alarm bells.
Also found guilty today, co-defendant Jackie X, who got a shorter suspended sentence for feeding Jianji details of military passengers, cargo and weapons shipments at Leipzig airport. One of Germany's regional spy chiefs told me China are sophisticated players.
The Chinese are very creative in planting their spies and information sources and others. That's not surprising, but that, of course, the European Parliament didn't have the right security measures to at least check on their staff. That was something that surprised me very much.
In a statement, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs says China firmly opposes the sensationalization of the so-called Chinese spy threat and urges the relevant parties to cease spreading rumours, slandering and smearing China. But as Jianji begins his jail term, the question remains how a Chinese spy got a job at the centre of European politics and managed to stay undetected for so long. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News, Dresden.
Well, this is The World. Next up, could Israel face a European football ban? We'll look at why Israeli clubs and the national team could be shown a red card. That's next.
I'm David Blevins, one of Sky's US correspondents based in Washington, D.C.
Connor, what did you say to the president? What did you say?
We had a great meeting. He was a great man.
David Blevins from Sky News. Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Sky News in the UK. Why do you think the president should intervene on Iran?
I think Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is an acute threat to the national security of the United States.
Free wherever you get your news.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No,
Do you...
He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Thank you. Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war.
This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Welcome back. Europe's football governing body, UEFA, is weighing up whether or not to ban Israel from taking part in matches. For now, Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan has put their vote on hold, but the majority of members are said to be in favour of taking Israel off the pitch. It means Israel's national team has the go-ahead to play matches against Norway and Italy next month. But this was the scene in Oslo over the weekend, where protesters gathered to call for Israel's immediate suspension from international competitions. Well, joining me now is human rights activist Ashish Prasha, who is the founder and director of Game Over Israel, a campaign calling on both UEFA and FIFA to suspend Israel from world football. That was you, wasn't it, in Norway, doing that? It has long been accepted that sport and politics are an uncomfortable mix. What is your case?
Well, look, the problem is when you think about normalization of atrocities, war crimes, genocide, apartheid in history, when you normalize it through culture. There is no more important place to end a relationship with someone committing these war crimes or atrocities than in culture. And football is the biggest sporting, cultural event in the world. It's the only sport that everyone plays, you know. We all know there's other sports, but literally every country in the world plays it, right? And by letting Israel participate in sport, we're saying we're okay with occupation. We're saying our fans are okay with apartheid. We're saying our people are okay with genocide, a genocide that was declared by the UN on the 16th of September, right? So we need to work really hard to kick them out of that, to make sure that we are not okay with that, right? That is the biggest thing. And when we launched this campaign in Times Square in New York on the 16th of September, we said to the world, Israel is committing a genocide. And football, it's your responsibility to stop sports washing and boycott Israel.
But the problem is, if you kick them out, you would then be saying it is not OK for a nation to defend itself against the atrocities very nearly 2 years ago of October the 7th, because in Israel's eyes, this is about self-defence.
Well, this is about genocide. In the end of the day, this campaign was built around a UN declaration that it's a genocide. And that is the ultimate crime. We were all taught about it in history, right? We were taught about the Holocaust, we were taught everything else. Our focus is on that crime. And the reality is there are some estimates by the UN and other bodies that up to 680,000 people could be dead once we clear the rubble. That is a crime that we have not seen in this century. And the crime for that, we should be punishing the country, body, whatever it is, that is committing that, no matter what the start. And if we want to talk about the start of something, this started 77 plus years ago, and we haven't addressed all those other things with the first ethnic cleansing of Gaza, right, and the first ethnic cleansing of Palestine. And if we want
there have been multiple wars, as you know, and I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on your campaign and what's going to be done about it in world football. We know that the US State Department, as found out by our sports correspondent Rob Powell, would try to stop any moves to ban to ban this. Rob Harris would try to Rob Harris would try to ban this if this move went through. So what is the mechanism for both UEFA and FIFA to make these decisions then?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, as you introduced, UEFA want to do this. Like Shefrin, I believe, wants to do this. We have really, we understand that, he put a banner up at the European Super Cup that basically said, "Stop killing kids." Do you know why he did that? He's a father, and his own family demanded he did that. That is such an important thing here. And also, the European federations, you've already said, they all want to do this. You've already seen publicly, Norway have written to them, Turkey have written to them, the Irish have written to them, the Belgians have written to them, the Italians have written to them. Europe wants to have Israel kicked out. It's beyond the pale for them at this point. And I just want to say, the reason we launched the campaign we didn't focus on FIFA when we launched. We focused on football federations. The reason we did that is because a lot of people say there's a discrepancy between the way we behave with Russia and Israel. Actually, it was 12 European countries led by Sweden and Poland that boycotted Russia, that forced UEFA and FIFA to suspend them. And we are targeting European federations as well, those countries like Ireland, Norway, Italy, and everyone, to actually demand that they also boycott Israel right now, force UEFA and then FIFA to suspend them.
So the games that are due to go ahead, because any decision has been delayed, is Norway and Italy and Maccabi Tel Aviv. So why don't their opponents boycott this then?
Well, the thing is, right now, if they boycott on their own, they will be punished and Israel goes to the World Cup, right? And that is what a lot of European nations don't want. What Israel and Norway need, because they really want to boycott these games. I really know that they do. Their football federation heads and their players and their coaches have actually spoken pretty openly about this. But what they need is their European allies to step up and say, we will boycott football alongside them unless you kick Israel out. Spain made this half-hearted announcement that they would boycott the World Cup if Israel goes. Spain also knows if Italy and Norway play those games, Israel's not qualifying for the World Cup. So it's a half-hearted suggestion. What we need is Ireland, Turkey, Spain to step up right now and say to FIFA, Gianni Infantino, who supports, frankly, this genocide at this point because he's basically washing his hands of it, and put the FIFA headquarters in Trump Towers. He's basically saying to the world what he thinks. But the federations can band together, protect Italy and Norway, and demand that Israel is thrown out so everyone else can play football and move on.
So it does appear it is the Gaza peace plan that is holding up any decision. You worked with Tony Blair, somebody who's supposed to be involved in this, on the peace board, which would be chaired by Donald Trump himself. Is Tony Blair the right man for the job? You worked when he was Middle East envoy, yes?
Look, Tony Blair being in charge of this is like putting the arsonist in charge of rebuilding the house he put on fire. There is a reason the majority of the Middle East call him the butcher of Baghdad. There is no way he should be near this. I mean, I joined the Middle East envoy's office, the quartet's office, believing that after Iraq, he wanted a reprieve. I believed he wanted to change his legacy. Remember, we grew up with him negotiating the Northern Ireland peace agreement. So you think that after Iraq, maybe he wanted to do something different. Working in that office, you realize that he had no intention of that. And unfortunately, I don't think he's the right person for this job. And I think...
Despite showing utter commitment to it, both as envoy and working closely with Donald Trump on this peace plan.
Well, he started to work on this, frankly, with Joe Biden, and the State Department with Antony Blinken was running it. I think he was originally brought in, or the institute he works with was originally brought in when Biden was still president. And I think people need to, everyone wants to pin this together. The idea of Blair working with Trump makes a mess. Actually, it's both American presidents who wanted to work with him, and we forget that one of them started the support of this genocide in the first place. But Blair himself is just toxic to the Middle East. There is no way Palestinians can trust him. He's already shown in the envoy's office that he always sided with Israel on everything that happened, whether it be, you know, announcements about relief or aid or, frankly, transport in and out of the West Bank. He went in through meetings and basically always sided with one side. You can't have that at the table. What we need, just quickly, is a member of the Global South to be on that peace board.
OK, well, we'll try and get hold of Tony Blair to defend himself against some of that. Anyway, Ashish Prasha, thank you very much indeed. And, you know, good to hear from you and your campaign. Well, thanks for joining us on The World this evening. Yalda will be back tomorrow, but stay with me for Sky News at 10. That is up next.
I want to start the programme today with a name, a story that I can't get out of my head. The campaign has now started. This is your chance. Tell people. This is the Politics Hub. It's not correct. The tax burden is projected to go up.
No, I am talking about...
No, but I'm not. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous.
No one does care about us.
I'm really interested in that. On the Politics Hub, we like to push the boundaries. He's got the majority. The question is, what is he going to do with it?